Good morning. How's everybody doing this morning? I don't own the rights to this music. I haven't seen you all in a while. I'm glad to see everybody's doing okay. I'm here to bring up a real important post. I mean, y'all know how I do. I sit back, I take a stock, I sit back and I watch and see what's going on and see, engage the atmosphere and, what's happening out here. And man, I ran across something. I was just looking for important content, talk about, other than what was already on my mind. But we all already know what the, major stink in the room is these days. And that's talk about this Jew situation, yay, and this one and that one, and, but it's a lot of confusion going on out here. So I ran across a post this morning that is going to definitely be taken down, and let YouTube and everybody else know this is fair use because it's public information. It is world public information. Talking about the Talmud of the Jewish teachings, the Talmud, and here's one of the Rothschilds, and some great history from a Christian historian who's been going after the Jews for a long time. They've basically blackballed this guy and silence him and keep him off all platforms because he talks about the Talmud and let you know what's really in the Talmud. And so without further ado, I'm going to let this music go all the way down. And I want you all to pay close attention because this is going to get taken down. They probably even take my post down after I post this because I'm posting some real shit here. So I'm not going to hold you all much longer. I'm going to go ahead and let y'all see this. I'm going to go ahead and let the people who are involved do the talking. The first person you're going to see is one of the Rothschilds speaking. He's going to read a letter that was drafted speaking about, how the movement of taking over Palestine and how the Jews and how the British and everybody was involved. So without further ado, you guys take your time, pay attention. I will chat a little bit afterwards, but you all really need to get this. It's not that long. It's a little long, but you need to get this. You need to listen to this. This is coming out of the Talmud. This is coming from Jewish people. This is what they don't want you to really know. So without further ado, here we go.
In the history of the Jewish people, if you think it took 3,000 years to get to this, and then you say, how did this miracle happen? That's the most incredible piece of opportunism. I mean, if you think you had an impoverished would-be scientist, Hein Weizmann, who somehow gets to England, meets a few people, including most of my family, seduces them. He has such great charm and conviction.
Can you all see this good?
He gets to Balfour, and he unbelievably persuades Balfour and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister, and most of the ministers, that this idea of the national home for Jews should be allowed to take place. I mean, it's so unlikely. And then he's,
I'm going to pause this for a second, guys. And I'm going to take some light off because there's something glaring. I really want you all to see this. I don't want it to glare too much. I want y'all, can y'all see that better now? Yeah, I think we can see that better. All right. Let's do it again. Here we go.
Battle with the British cabinet, and this letter goes through 5 drafts, as you know. And in the end, it comes out as a rather compromising letter. I mean, the essential point is there for the Jewish community to fasten on to. You have the first bit, which promises a national home rather than the national home. And then you have the bit that nothing that's to be done should in any way harm the Arab community. But you come back to the big point, which is that this is perhaps the greatest event in Jewish life.
One second, guys. I don't like how this is going down. I really want to get.
He has such great charm
All right.
He gets to Balfour, and he unbelievably persuades Balfour and Lloyd George, the Prime Minister,
He's speaking about the
and
Balfour
the
Papers.
ministers, that this idea of the national home for Jews should be allowed to take place. I mean, it's so unlikely. And then he's, starts to fight a difficult battle with the British cabinet, and this letter goes through 5 drafts, as you know. And in the end, it comes out as a rather compromising letter. I mean, the essential point is there for the Jewish community to fasten on to. You have the first bit, which promises a national home rather than the national home. And then you have the bit that nothing that's to be done should in any way harm the Arab community.
Which is a lie. I'm going to pause that. You see, in the Balfour Papers, they claimed that they were supposed to have been basically moving into Palestine, and nothing was to be done to the Arab community or the Christians that were already there. Which, that was a lie, due to all the warring and fighting that was going on over there. So let's keep going.
To the big point, which is that this is perhaps the greatest event in Jewish life.
The young man talking is one of the original family members.
This land is now owned by the Federal Reserve heads,
Rothschilds.
the people in the pyramid that are currently alive, if you want to call, Lord Rothschild alive. I mean, it looks like, crypt keeper, like many of them do. They're the top of the pyramid. I know people believe the Vatican and the Pope are, they're neck and neck then. Okay, these are the 2 highest. Many
That's true. The Pope has a lot of power.
Himself. And they're the ones who perform probably the most, not probably, they perform the most heinous rituals you could possibly imagine. So they're the face of the Zionist movement, which is a political movement. Now, when you get into the Talmud and the teachings in it, this is what people should be talking about. They won't let you talk about it. They won't let you bring it up. They always bring up the Bible, and they bring up Sodom and Gomorrah and things like that. And they're like, Christians are the worst, and all this stuff that's in the Bible, and they're hateful, and they're bigots. If people, actually studied what's in the teachings of the Talmud, which have nothing to do with Judaism, they are all about Babylonian teachings. These are Babylonian teachings. That's what the Talmud is. And this is one of the most prominent, this is what they read at temple. These are some of the things that they talk about. Now I'm going to show you some clips from Ted Pike's documentaries. And Ted Pike, if you don't know Ted Pike, he is a warrior for God. He is one of the first people to start exposing this agenda, and he is.
Ted Pike is the guy that they pretty much blacklist and banned from being on the internet. But he has great information. You guys listen. Listen good.
Specifically for the work that he has done, and hopefully people will see his work for centuries and centuries. Obviously, I don't know if that's likely because they will, silence this type of content and shut these types of videos down.
As you can see, it's called the Balfour Declaration.
Impossible to find. He has a few.
This was the declaration that basically created the state of Israel.
All these other things involving the Talmud and the Jewish conspiracies. But here are clips about the Talmud. These are things that are being taught in their books. And this is why they don't want you questioning them, because they don't want people learning of some of the stuff that's being taught, especially involving children.
The treatise Sanhedrin, an extensive passage describes the right of the Pharisee to kill anyone, just as long as he did so indirectly. As one of dozens of examples, the Talmud tells us that if one bound his neighbor and he died of starvation, he is not liable to execution. In such an indirect manner, the Pharisees also killed Christ, manipulating the Romans to actually wield the spear and sword. The Pharisees claimed, as their descendants do today, that since the Romans were the direct cause of the death of Christ, it is the Romans, not the Jews, who are guilty. Christ also called the Pharisees adulterers, an adulterous generation. The Talmud provides generous loopholes for adultery. It says the penalty for adultery does not include sex with a minor, the wife of a minor, or the wife of a heathen.
Listen.
The Talmud also encourages seduction of unwed adolescent girls called designated bondmaids. But it's important how such rapes are performed. With the designated bondmaid, one is guilty only in the case of natural connection, but not in the case of perverse connection.
Meaning your child or your first cousin.
The perverted matter is outside the jurisdiction of the law. Normal rape, however, was punishable. In Babylon, sexual perversion of every kind had been a way of life for millenniums. The Pharisees were deeply influenced by such practices.
In 3 of the major treatises of the Talmud are found
That's the Reverend that's
passages
banned
which
it.
give legal endorsement to seduce and marry 3-year-old baby girls.
Listen.
In fact, many of the greatest rabbis of the Talmud, including Simeon ben Yochai, upheld this privilege. Today in Israel, thousands of Jews go to Meron every year to venerate the memory of Simeon ben Yochai, one of the most respected rabbis in the history of Judaism.
In one of dozens of endorsements of child sex, Simeon ben Yochai said, "A proselyte under the age of 3 years and a day is permitted to marry a priest." Agreeing with ben Yochai, the great Rabbah said, "When a grown-up man has intercourse with a little girl, it is nothing, for when the girl is less than this, 3 years and a day, it is as if one put the finger into the eye." The footnote to this passage says, "As tears come to the eye again and again, so does virginity come back to the little girl under 3 years." The same section confirms that sexual activity with small boys is in the same category. The intercourse of a small boy is not regarded as a sexual act.
Sodomites.
In addition to adulterers, Christ, in the story of the Good Samaritan, portrayed the Pharisees as racial bigots, too self-righteous to respond to the suffering of one who was not a Jew. It is true, because of the wickedness of the Canaanites, which included sodomy and infant sacrifice, Israel had been commanded by God to be harsh in her treatment of the inhabitants of the land. God made it clear that the Canaanites were not simply to be avoided, but destroyed. By the time of the New Testament, this method of preserving God's kingdom by separation and the sword had become obsolete. God no longer made a racial difference between men.
But the Pharisees were unfazed by God's new agenda. The Talmud was finally written down nearly 5 centuries after Christ, yet it's critical. Even homicidal attitudes toward Gentiles might have been lifted out of the book of Joshua. However, the quickest way to grasp the Talmudic view of Gentiles is not directly from the Talmud, but from the Jewish encyclopedias. If we quote an isolated opinion from the Talmud, a rabbi may quickly object, saying, "But that is not the overall opinion of the Talmud. That is not the definitive view." What the Jewish Encyclopedia provides us is a definitive overview of perhaps hundreds of rabbinic statements on any subject, giving us accurate summaries of what the Talmud generally teaches.
In its article on Gentiles, the Jewish Encyclopedia begins to define what makes a Jew so different from a Gentile. According to the rabbis, only Israelites are men. Gentiles they class not as men, but as barbarians.
Listen.
Since Gentiles are not men in the fullest sense, so the Gentile is not a neighbor of a Jew. Further, since Gentile laws were too crude to admit of reciprocity, meaning too crude to be taken seriously, the Gentile was forever beneath the Jew. Gentiles were outlawed by God from the beginning, and thus had no property rights. The Almighty offered the Torah to the Gentile nations also, but since they refused to accept it, he withdrew his shining legal protection from them and transferred their property rights to Israel, who observed his law. Since the Talmud outlawed the child, or issue of a Gentile, as that of a beast, a Gentile had as little legal rights in a Jewish court as did an animal.
As today,
The Talmud states that if a Gentile sue an Israelite, the verdict is for the defendant, the Israelite. Conversely, if the Israelite is the plaintiff, he obtains full damages. Because the Talmud conspires against Gentiles, if a Jew was ever caught telling a Gentile what the Talmud really says, such a person deserves death. So vile was the nature of a Gentile that the great Simeon ben Yohai said, "The best among the Gentiles deserves to be killed. The best of snakes ought to have its head crushed." Jews, however, are exalted beings in the Talmud, worthy of praise. Christ described the Pharisee who blessed himself, saying, "I thank thee, Lord, that I am not as other men." An eminent Talmudic rabbi says the same. "Blessed be thou, who hast not made me a Goy, or Gentile." There is a special antagonism between the Talmud and Jesus. The Talmud attacks him everywhere it can, even his mother. Mary, the Talmud says, was a whore who mated with carpenters. She who was the descendant of princes and governors played the harlot with carpenters. It naturally followed that the scribes declared Christ to be a bastard. In its article on Jesus, the Jewish Encyclopedia says that Jewish writings defame Christ. It is the tendency of all these sources to belittle the person of Jesus by ascribing to him illegitimate birth, magic, and a shameful death.
Listen.
Jesus, according to this article, was considered one of the three worst enemies of Judaism who came to an ignoble end. The Talmud says they subjected him to 4 deaths: stoning, burning, decapitation, and strangling. The Talmud also says he is now in hell, punished with boiling hot excrement. What is Christ's advice as he speaks to us out of hell? The Jewish Encyclopedia quotes Jesus as telling us above all to bless the Jews. He says, "Further their well-being, do nothing to their detriment. Whoever touches them touches even the apple of his eye."
Fire burn.
Christians, as followers of the false prophet Jesus, also deserve death. The Jewish Encyclopedia again recaps the Talmud's position. A Gentile observing the Sabbath deserves death. It says the Talmud's hatred was probably directed against the Christian Jews. These Judeo-Christians, evasively called min, minute, or minim, were considered by the rabbis to be the most dangerous form of heretics of ancient times. The New Testament Gospels were writings which the rabbis considered more dangerous to the unity of Judaism than those of the pagans. A Talmudic rabbi said, "The writings of Christians deserve to be burned, for paganism is less dangerous than minute or Christianity."
Which is what they're following,
The
paganism.
Jewish Encyclopedia, in its article on men, continues to illustrate the Talmudic hatred of Christianity. Again, we must remember, minim usually indicates the Judeo-Christians. It was forbidden to partake of meat, bread, or wine with the Christian. Scrolls of the law, Tefillin, and Mezuzot written by a Christian were burned. An animal slaughtered by a Christian was forbidden food. The relatives of the Christian were not permitted to observe the laws of mourning after his death, but were required to assume festive garments and rejoice. The testimony of a Christian was not admitted in evidence in Jewish courts, and an Israelite who found anything belonging to one who was a Christian was forbidden to return it to him.
The Pharisees, through their Talmud, thus gave the Jews an ethic which encouraged bigotry and isolation. But it did worse than that. It invited persecution. By the 11th century, the inhabitants of Babylon, growing weary of the self-righteousness and dishonesty of the Jews, expelled them to the west.
So,
those are just some of the
did y'all see that? Did y'all hear that? I'm going to let this guy who's hosting this speak a little bit more because he's going to get into the Kanye thing a little bit. So, hey, fair use. It didn't come from me. It came out of the Jewish Talmud books, okay? The Talmud, all right? It didn't come from Chaka Ben Judah, okay? This is a study. This is coming right out of the Jewish encyclopedias of the Talmud. So, you know, if you was to put the word sodomy in the context of what you heard, you would be pretty much spot on. So, you know, a lot of the stuff that's going on out here is a, should I say, a pot of confusion to what's really going on and what is really that the Jewish nation wants to hide. This is why anytime anybody speak out on it, they, you know, come at you. A lot of this information that we're seeing, thanks to the information highway known as, you know, the internet, it can't be stopped now, even by the Jewish powers, which they're very powerful people. You know, David Chappelle might have joked about it, but it's the truth. Kanye might have, you know, came out the wrong way. It's the truth. They're powerful. They have a lot to do with running media. They have a lot to do with all your media installations. I'm talking your TV, your radio, and your damn newspapers and your magazines. Now your internet. So all this information pointing to them can't not be false, especially when you're taking it straight out of their Talmud encyclopedias. So let this brother say what's going on with Ye. He's making some good points here, you know? So let's see what this brother's talking about with the crazy Ye.
Frightening things that are in there, okay? So when Kanye West and these guys come on TV and they start saying, well, I praise Hitler, right? Of course it's going to make people out there go, oh, these people are lunatics. Oh, the poor Jewish people. Why do they have such a bad rap? Why do people go after them? And that's what Kanye is trying to do here. Kanye works for the Rothschilds, okay? Kanye is a billionaire. All this stuff about, oh, he's losing all this money, and, oh, you know, Balenciaga, for example, he lost his sponsorship with Balenciaga, but Kanye still supports Balenciaga even after all those creepy pictures are put up. Anyone suspicious about that?
Now check that out.
People out there actually believe Kanye West is now a truther, and that's what they're trying to do. They're mixing Hollywood in with truth, and then you have their alt-right plans.
Now you see, he's making a good point there. A lot of you plebiscite niggas and dumbass crackers out here. The shit that Kanye is doing is a shock and awe. He's doing a shock jock shit, you know, Howard Stern. You know, what's my man from here in DC back in the day? You know, just say Habudugi. You know, these guys are what you call shock jocks. You know, but a lot of times what a shock jock does is that he shocks you with the truth. The truth is sounding so shocking that you thought that bullshit, you can't believe it. No, a lot of that shit's true. Check it out. A lot of that shit's true.
It's like Nick Fuentes and Milo and some of these other clowns that get, you know, Kanye West on their shows and things like that. Like Kanye West is going on YouTuber shows, being of conspiracy theorists. It's unbelievable. I haven't got a call. I'm probably one of the most known. I mean, I might, maybe not. I mean, maybe not anymore. But, you know, and would I ever have him on? Yeah. I mean, I talked to him on a live stream, you know? I mean, let's get to the actual answers. Let's talk about the blood sacrifice of his mother. Let's talk about how he was involved. Let's talk about, why did it take 10 years for, you know, him to change? Why is he suddenly saying it now? Why has he never mentioned it before? Why all of a sudden is he, you know, he's running around being anti-Semitic all of a sudden, right? He's out there saying things like, oh, Hitler's great. I love some of the stuff the man did. Oh, okay. Well, could you speak of why, you know, who they are, right? He says they, right? Which is a common thing that I always say is they, and many others always say they.
And who are they? I've been trying to meet these people called they for a long time.
So that whenever people start saying they, they're automatically.
I'm 58 years old. I haven't met the people they yet.
Jewish people who aren't really Jewish people. They're people who hijack Judaism and are under, you know, pretending to be a certain group of people when they're not.
Pretty much.
They're not. They are of Satan in the synagogue of Satan. It doesn't mean every single person. It doesn't mean your next door neighbor.
That's right.
It means these people who control all of the media, the Rothschilds, the people who control the land over in Israel. It's all been hijacked.
Yes.
Okay? It's hard for people
the
to
Rothschilds basically own so-called
just
Israel.
Put a wall up when it comes to this topic, and that's what the elites want. They don't want anyone digging down the rabbit hole and seeing this stuff. They want people to automatically dismiss it, just like any other conspiracy. When somebody hears about chemtrailing, right? They automatically just go, oh, tinfoil hat wear conspiracy. They don't even realize why they do it. They do it because they've been programmed. Well, they've been programmed as well to constantly throw up an anti-Semitism flag without actually looking into this stuff. It's okay, apparently, to look into Christianity, right? And question all the stuff that's in our teachings. And we try to wave the flag about Christian persecution, and nobody wants to hear it. They're like, there's no such thing as Christian persecution.
Bullshit.
Oh, no?
Spanish acquisition.
You could just look at the Armenian genocide, which you never hear about.
Spanish acquisition, throw the comma.
Than what they claim, the numbers with the Holocaust. The Armenian genocide, never hear about that, and the annihilation of Armenian Christian people living in the Ottoman Empire. You never hear about that.
Right.
You have other things like the Bolshevik Revolution, et cetera, et cetera.
That's
you never
true.
hear about it. Right? Why? Because they want you to be able to go after Christians. They want you to look at Christians like they're on a pedestal, that they're the reason, America's the way it is, et cetera, et cetera. It's not true. It's not true at all. It's a different group of people pretending to be a group of people. And really, the core of what these people are Satanists.
Real talk.
Babylonian Satanists. That's what they should be called. And that should just end the topic of anti-Semitism in general. But they don't want you to discuss these things.
There's no such thing as anti-Semitism.
To question, specific groups of people, to show you the political connections to these people, to show you the connections to the Rothschild regime, etc. And Kanye West again. Nick Fuentes, they're all playing roles. They're going to bring about massive censorship to the rest of the world, to the rest of us. I mean, if Kanye is so against these people, then why does he have Milo as his presidential campaign manager, right? So he's got Nick Fuentes and Milo. Couldn't be more opposite in their perspectives, right? Nick Fuentes is anti-gay, Milo is gay, but they're all hanging out together, And then they go, well, they're all just this crazy group of people hanging out together because they're all censored. Oh, does that mean that I should get together with everyone who's censored on YouTube, and we should just form a faction and go around, and we can get on all these huge podcasts and TV shows and InfoWars? Huh? Yeah, I'm sure. All of them are playing their roles. The alt-right plays a huge role in what is about to come. Jeff C. used to talk about this with me and on his own when he used to do videos way back in 2016, warning about the alt-right and what it was going to be. And now we're seeing what the alt-right has become. And he'd be going nuts over it. I don't think he'd be able... if he didn't pass tragically the way he passed, I don't know if he would even be alive today, because he might have lost his mind if he saw where we've gone since... over the last 2 years. It's insane what's happened over the last 2 years. Insane. And I mean, it's what we're getting to is obviously all being done on purpose because it's psychological on both sides. So you're going to have a lot of these Hollywood actors who are going to play roles in manipulating the public. Oh, they broke free from Hollywood. They broke free from the occult. They broke free from the cabal. They're fighting against them. They're all playing a role. They would be 6 feet under if they didn't want them to be doing this. They wouldn't have platforms to do it. They're like, well, they're being deplatformed off Twitter, et cetera, et cetera. They're out there and they're mentioned every day. Kanye West is mentioned every day all over mainstream media, right? Some people were like, oh, Chappelle was he was speaking out, he was exposing them. He wouldn't have been hosting Saturday Night Live. They would have cut the mic and turned the lights off during his monologue that he gave, which I covered on my other channel. If you haven't seen it, make sure you click the link below and subscribe to that channel. The video is over there. I talk about the reasoning for that. So this is all being done by design. The ridiculousness of it with Alex Jones, and they're praising Hitler. Of course it gives people talking points to say conspiracy theorists are, racist, and they're anti-Semitic, and they're homophobic, because they just go out there with nothing to back up what they're saying. They don't speak articulately. Not that I do, but they don't give you any reason for what they're saying. They just go, hey, Hitler had great ideas. Hitler had some... He just keeps saying it. So people hearing it are like, this guy's lost his mind. This guy's insane. This guy, And then Alex Jones like, it's Sandy Hook, and
he should have damn learned this lesson $10 million ago. Alex Stupid Jones.
I didn't mean to say it. I shouldn't have said it. I was getting misinformation. They're all pushing censorship forward, is what they're doing. And
exactly
they're
what they're doing
on anti-Semitism again to make sure that that's at the forefront of all this. Not racism. They want to make sure, hey, you can't talk about homosexuality. Everybody's a racist, et cetera, but they want anti-Semitism at the forefront. Because they want to make sure that, again, that they're looked at and put on the pedestal of the most oppressed people ever in the history of life, so you can't question those people. So if you try to look in the Federal Reserve, you try to look into who controls the media, you're anti-Semitic, hateful, horrible person who should be thrown in jail. That's the mindset that they have. But in reality, it has nothing to do with the actual Jewish people.
Real
It
talk.
has to do with the people who hijacked it.
Real
That's
talk.
what's been going on, and that's why a certain group of people, these people, have been run out of every country they've ever been in for the things that they're doing, and now they're getting away with it in the open, and they hide behind a bubble called anti-Semitism,
Spot
which
on.
isn't a real thing.
Spot
This video
on.
is likely to be taken down, of course, but I decided to do it to reach out to people and make sure they sub to my other channels, or at least join the website if they want to hear more content like this. I appreciate everyone who was here. I thank you so much. Sub to the channels again below. Join the website. And take care of yourselves. God bless all of you and your families.
All right, man. So, I hope you guys got a earful. I really do. Because that, to me, is more insightful than anything that, we've been seeing here lately. It's been a lot of, and if you guys want to check out this guy's website, here's his website right here. You can't hardly see it. So it's called A Call for an Uprising. That's the name of the website, A Call for an Uprising. And he gives pretty good, thorough information, man. I like when people if the Jewish people pull this video, or if they pull his video, they only pulled it because he pulled the receipts from their teachings, the Talmud. He pulled the receipts straight out of the Talmud and the Talmud's encyclopedias. So, for them to pull it is to show and prove that what I'm reposting and what he posted is true. Regardless of the fact, it's true. Because it's coming out of their encyclopedias. It's coming from their teachings. This is what they're taught. But they don't want you to ever learn this. They don't want you to ever know these things. You see? This is why everybody is anti-Semitic if you speak anything against these people, because they know that they are dealing with a lot of, sodomy and ism and schism. And look, I don't condone Hitler, but Hitler has said some real important things in his journals in his last days, when he was speaking to the black nation in America and America itself about the Jewish so-called people. He spoke some real serious things, and they were truthful, which doesn't give the right, or doesn't justify, or doesn't condone what Hitler did to the Jewish people. But I tell you what, it makes you understand it a little bit more. It don't make you go, oh yeah, I'm going to side him, because I ain't with that at all. I ain't with annihilating nobody. Let God do that. Although some might say, well, God uses people to do his work, so he might have used Hitler. Hey, I say that I don't believe God would do that. But it makes you understand and overstand his mindset, Hitler that is, and what his purpose was to do to those particular people who were calling themselves Jews. Once again, I don't condone it, but it makes you come to a clearer understanding, seeing the revelations that's going on today. I also ran into a real serious TD hip-hop. Situation today that I think a lot of us need to, be hip to. I know you guys been wondering where I've been. I've been sitting back taking a stock, I recently was on Shantine Walden's, show, his podcast. He brought me and another brother up. The brother's name was, and you can go to this brother's website too. His brother's name is Keith Cunningham. He brought me and Keith Cunningham up. and shout out to Keith Cunningham and Shanti. You know, he brought him up, and we were speaking on a lot of deep issues, you know, pertaining to, you know, what's been going on in this media here and all this rhetoric dealing with, you know, black people and reparations and stuff like that. So y'all guys take a quick listen to my man TD Hip Hop.
Office, many were in awe of how quickly the Biden administration was able to get an anti-Asian hate crime bill passed through Congress and signed into law while only being in office a little over 3 months. Now, what I'd like to take a quick moment to do is read this very short New York Times article titled, "The House Passes an Anti-Asian Hate Crime Bill, Clearing It for Biden's Signature." And the reason I wanted to read this article off for you very quickly is because it wasn't too long ago when there were some arguments online concerning whether or not the hate crime bill was specifically for Asians. Well, I can assure you that this hate crime bill was created for the specific purposes of curtailing anti-Asian hate crimes in the United States, and this article proves that point to be true. So
let me stop for a second.
Quickly.
Something came to my mind back to the prior topic about the Jews. They said, the moderator said something about how they were the most accosted and abused people in the history of mankind. That's a goddamn lie. A GOTDAMN lie. A goddamn lie. I don't know where the hell you got that damn lie from, but you's a goddamn lie. The Jewish people has not been accosted and abused and targeted more than black people around the world. Don't matter where we are. If we're in Africa, we're accosted. If we're in Canada, we're accosted. If we're in Europe, we're accosted. Here in America, the Caribbean. No Jewish people have been accosted for over all those years. They try to claim that they've been accosted for 3,000 years. Well, these people are not the people we're talking about 3,000 years ago. They're not the ones. Not these Ashkenazis. No. Okay? So the most accosted people on this earth has been the black man. There's been no other man on this earth or no other people on this earth accosted more than black men. So back to TD Hip Hop.
The House passes an anti-Asian hate crimes bill, clearing it for Biden's signature. The House overwhelmingly passed legislation on Tuesday amid the strengthening federal efforts to address hate crimes directed at Asian Americans, clearing the measure for President Biden's signature. The bill, approved in a 364-62 vote, is the first legislative action that Congress has taken to bolster law enforcement's response to attacks on people of Asian descent amid an uptick in discrimination and violence against Asian Americans communities during the pandemic. The Asian American community is exhausted from being forced to endure this rise of bigotry and racist attacks, said Representative Grace Ming, Democrat of New York. Asian Americans are tired of living in fear. The measure, led by Senator Mazie Hirono, Democrat of Hawaii, would establish a position at the Justice Department to expedite the agency's reviews of hate crimes and expand the channels to report them. It would also encourage the creation of state-run hate crime hotlines, providing grants to law enforcement agencies that train their officers to identify hate crimes and introduce a series of public education campaigns around bias against people of Asian descent. The bill was also approved by an overwhelming margin in the Senate, with only Senator Josh Hawley, Republican of Missouri, opposing it. He argued that it mandated an overly expensive collection of data around hate crimes that could sideline into government overreach. In the House, 62 Republicans opposed it. Mr. Biden last month pledged to swiftly sign the legislation when it reached his desk, hailing it as putting our nation one step closer to achieving justice and equality. For more than a year, far too many Asian Americans have woken up each morning increasingly fearful for their safety and the safety of their loved ones, Mr. Biden said. They have been scapegoated, harassed, and assaulted.
Imagine
Some
that.
have even been killed. So that settles that. But if you thought 3.5 months was fast to put in place an anti-Asian hate crime bill, well, I'm here to tell you that Joe Biden has absolutely nothing on New York Governor Kathy Hochul, as New York Governor signs anti-hate crime bill days after synagogue attack foiled. Days after 2 men were arrested in Penn Station and charged with planning an attack on a synagogue, New York Governor Kathy Hochul signed legislation meant to combat hate and bias crimes. The bill would require mandatory hate crime prevention training for individuals convicted of such crimes, as well as establish a statewide campaign around inclusion, tolerance, and diversity. Hochul's announcement comes after a weekend that included the arrest of 2 individuals who wanted to shoot up a synagogue and the shooting at an LGBTQ club in Colorado Springs, Colorado, that left 5 dead and 25 wounded. On Sunday, Hochul said state police would increase surveillance and protection efforts at synagogues and other vulnerable sites. Hochul pointed to an Anti-Defamation League report that showed that the organization counted 2,717 anti-Semitic incidents across the country last year, which was a 34% increase from the previous year and the highest since it began tracking in 1979. No young Jewish boy should ever have to look over their shoulder as he's walking to a yeshiva, Hochul said. Now there's 2 things that I'd like to highlight, and the first one is this. When you come back to the portion of the article highlighted which states, Hochul pointed to an Anti-Defamation League report that showed that the organization counted 2,717 anti-Semitic incidences across the country last year, which was a 34% increase from the previous year and the highest since it began tracking in 1979. What I need you to understand is that these numbers are inflated, and I broke down the process of inflating hate crime numbers in my past video titled NYC Mayor Eric Adams and Governor Deliver $40 million to AAPI, but $0 and a hip-hop lecture to the black community. Now let's develop a little understanding of how inflating numbers work. First, you have to understand that there is a difference between hate incidents and hate crimes. Notice how the ADL and other organizations such as Stop Asian Hate never cite the official FBI data on hate crimes. The reason they don't do that is because, as we all know, the actual FBI data on hate crimes shows and proves that black Americans are the most hated and targeted race and or group of people in this country. According to the FBI data, no other race or group of people even comes close to being targeted as much as black Americans. And these organizations...
So stop right there for a second. So if no other group even comes close, and you can see the chart, you see the pie wheel chart up there, and you can see the biggest is us. Well, and we don't have no type of protections at all. We should be like a goddamn bald eagle, endangered fucking mallard duck or a loon duck. We should be on the fucking endangered list and protected federally. But yet they would keep throwing billions and billions to Jews and Latinos and now Ukrainians and Afghanistanians and Pacific Islanders and everybody fucking else but us. Shall we continue?
And that's why they rely on what's called hate incidents. Hate incidents are incidents that are reported to said organization like the ADL or Stop AAPI Hate versus being reported to the proper authorities. Also, hate incidents do not comprise solely of physical assault, but mainly verbal abuse or physical avoidance, as you can see here.
Just like that sister in New York who got into an argument with one of those Asian ladies, and now she's sitting there looking at 10 years in prison off of an argument. They trying to say, oh, that's hate speech, is a hate crime. So now if you even get into an argument with one of these Asians, and with a lot of time they are very, very aggressive towards us, you know, that's why it's only maybe 2 restaurants that are Chinese or Asian that I deal with. One's in Chinatown, and the other one is over here in Southeast where I'm at. Those are the only 2 I deal with. I don't deal with none of the rest of them because I've been in and seen how they treat people. I walk right out. And when I see them being ill towards people, and here they are black people, that's basically your main base, I leave right out. The reason why I deal with the one in Chinatown, because it's in Chinatown. That means they got to deal with a lot of their own kind, and they got to deal with a lot of white people. So their mannerisms are very up to par. So, and they treat everybody nice. Besides, I do DoorDash, and I go on this particular one a lot. She's very nice. She's very mannerable. She's very respectful. She's very sweet. So I don't mind giving them my money. And their food is excellent, excellent. They call Joy Luck on 6th Street. If you ever want some of some excellent, some of the greatest shrimp fried rice you ever want to taste, go to Joy Luck on 6th and 8th Street, Northwest Washington, D.C. So other than that, I don't go into restaurants because a lot of them are very aggressive, and I'm afraid what they're going to do to my damn food. You know what I mean? And you can't cuss them out. You cuss them out, you're going to get that special wonton sauce. So here we go.
In the Stop AAPI Hates National Report, from March 19th, 2020 to December 31st, 2021, a total of 10,905 hate incidents against Asian American and Pacific Island persons were reported to Stop AAPI Hate. Verbal harassment, 63%, continues to make up the biggest share of total incidents reported.
Now I had to stop there. Did you hear me say? He said the majority of the incidents dealing with the Asian community is verbal harassment. A lot of that verbal harassment comes from arguments. A lot of times, like I said, these aggressive Asians out here who are very aggressive, especially towards black people, tend to start a lot of these verbal arguments by coming off on a person ill-gotten who's sitting there patronizing your business, most likely. And so, of course, that person who's patronizing your business is about to give you their goddamn money. Is going to have something to say to your ass. Oh, because you're Asian, I say something harsh to you like you saying harsh to me. I'm getting locked up with a hate crime bill. Man, that's just ridiculous. But yet, we have no protections. And people are gunning us down the streets. But you don't see no Asian people coming out for that. You don't see no Latino people coming out for that. You don't see nobody coming out for that but us. Like John Henry Clark said, all we have is us.
Comprises the second largest category of total reported incidents, followed by the deliberate avoidance of AAPI's 16.1%. So in between verbal harassment and deliberate avoidance, that accounts for 79.1% of hate incidents. 79.1% of these incidents
Are you listening?
consist of, I don't like how you're talking to me, and I don't like that you moved away from me. Now let's move over to the recent ADL report. In 2021, ADL counted a total of 2,717 anti-Semitic incidents across the U.S. This represents a 34% increase from the 2,026 incidents recorded in 2020 and is the highest number on record since ADL began tracking anti-Semitic incidents in 1979. The audit classifies incidents into 3 categories: assault, a total of 88 incidents; harassment, a total of 1,776 incidents were categorized as harassment. This category labeled as harassment is the ADL's version of verbal harassment that we just saw in the Stop API Hate report. Now you see, verbal harassment can literally mean anything. Okay?
Yes.
Verbal harassment can simply break down into, I don't like how you're talking to me, or I don't like what you just said, or I disagree with your perspective or observation. You see, verbal harassment doesn't automatically mean racial slur. Verbal harassment can literally mean anything that you simply just don't like.
Right.
And then there's the last category, vandalism, with another 853 incidents. Now, if you've been paying attention, do you see how in both reports, over half of the hate incidents were verbal harassment? That is precisely how these numbers are inflated. Verbal harassment cannot be verified unless you actually have a witness or there is an audio recording. Outside of
Facts.
that, it's just one person making a claim that another person said something that they didn't like. And that
My
doesn't
word against
necessarily
yours.
mean
And the
that
Asian
what
word
was
is going to be
said was a
taken.
racial slur. It could literally be anything. And if you don't like or agree with what was just said, well, that's verbal harassment. Because I didn't agree with you on that, or because I don't like your observation. But regardless of whatever is being said, almost none of it can be verified. Yet these are the inflated numbers that other groups are using to receive millions of dollars from federal and local governments. These are the inflated numbers that other groups are using to secure hate crime bills that are specifically for them. Yet when actual acts of hate occur to black Americans, as we witnessed not too long ago in Buffalo when white supremacist Peyton Gendron went into a Tops grocery store and intentionally targeted and killed 10 black Americans, the Democrats used your tragedies as an opportunity to push forth other political agendas. Which brings my last point. Your tragedies are used as an opportunity to push anti-terrorism bills, gun control bills, and whatever other bills that the Democrats have that they've been wanting to push.
Now, I'm glad that he said that, because the things that happen to black people, they equate that to everybody else. Oh, black and brown, when we all know damn well ain't no black and brown coalition. Especially what we done seen that done happened over there in Los Angeles, because they haven't got to them people. They was about to divvy up the goods and the money to everybody who was Latino other than black. They were trying to even take away black neighborhoods, you know, rezoning and all this, so that they can reap the benefits. So what he's saying is true. They inflate their numbers with our tragedies as we move on.
Every time tragedy strikes the black community, the Democrats use it as an opportunity to put their intersectional magic on it by tying your tragedies into their own political agendas.
And you hear about them in Congress by certain people, and you hear about them on cable shows. It's not just buried in the web anywhere. So these hateful philosophies are starting to become mainstream, and they took hold in the mind of an 18-year-old who lives 3 hours from here. And he targeted this community, intentionally coming to this zip code because he could do maximum damage and death to people, not just any New Yorker, but he was targeting and wanted to execute black New Yorkers. That's hard to comprehend, the depth of that hate. And it wasn't that alone, though. You could have that hate in your heart, and you could sit in your house and ferment these evil thoughts, but you can't act on it unless you have a weapon. And that's the intersection of these two crises in our nation right now. The mainstreaming of the hate speech and the racism and everything else that brought that person to this point, but also the access to military-style weapons and magazines, and that is that lethal combination that resulted in the loss of 10 decent, good people. Pray for them, but they're not with us because of that combination.
Now really think about this. No more than a couple of days after a Foyle synagogue shooting was this hate crime bill passed in New York. But when 10 black Americans were racially targeted by white supremacists and killed for no good reason other than being black, you were told that this isn't even about black people. It's about everybody. And they, meaning the Democrats, proceeded to act as such.
And I hope when the president goes,
look at this sellout.
And, there's no one better with giving a real compassion
ex-dope dealer
than President Joe Biden. I was in the room when he met with George Floyd's family the day before we had the funeral services in Houston. He is very compassionate, and so is Dr. Joe Biden. And I think he making with the first responders and community leaders is good, and then dealing with gun issue is good. But I also want him to come out and go from empathy to really dealing with this as a national hate crime level that is not just against blacks, but is against anyone that white supremacists feel are not like them, which includes Jews, Asians, Latino Americans, LGBT.
This is all-inclusion drug dealer.
People on the ground in National Action Network's chapter in Buffalo. I reached out to Jonathan Greenblatt. I reached out from the ADL. I reached out to the head of LULAC, Latinos. I reached out to Mark Morial. He said we need to call on a white
This is how they look at our plight for everybody else.
But we all are being targeted, and the president
bullshit
to that level to say we've got to deal with hate. We have to deal with those in the social media companies that allow this to have platforms. We have to deal with every element to break down how we stop this, so that a young man at 18 years old can think, not only am I going to do it, plan it, drive 3 hours to do it, I'm going to live stream it, because this, I want the world to know I'm a part of that.
Yet when tragedy
You see,
strikes everybody,
it tickled me how they try to make it look like, you know, it's an all-inclusive tragedy when majority of that tragedy is black people's tragedy. They want to try to make you think that, oh, this is happening to everybody. I don't see Latinos every damn week getting shot down the street by no police. I don't see no fucking Asians every week on the TV almost every other day now. Some fucking race soldier shooting down a black person. Armenians, Muslims of any type of nation besides black, if you're in America, because you black in America, your chances of getting killed by a police off some old fluke shit is a good chance. If you get stopped and don't know how to handle yourself. Notice I say if you get stopped and don't know how to handle yourself. Because all that old, you know, getting all excited and, you know, I know my rights, like Reek would say, oh, and all this old bullshit, you revving up and, you know what I mean? That you just giving them the fuel to shoot your stupid ass. Like that brother the other day. Was I forget what that was, some North Carolina somewhere, or Texas, one of them places, Georgia. It was Georgia, and the brother's fighting back. You know what I mean? And just let the motherfuckers put the handcuffs on you, man. If you know you right, you know you ain't done nothing wrong. Let your lawyers handle that. You gonna be all right. All this motherfucking, you know, carrying on and giving them a reason to kill you, man. Y'all got to chill with that shit. But it's us who's getting shot down the streets. It is black people, and particularly foundational black Americans. You see some of these tethers, like that damn tether last week, shot them people up, forehead way back on the top of his head. They want to put that with us. No, that's a foreign tether. Say who he is. Don't put him with black people in America. That's why we tell you all foreigners, hey, you big up your people when he's a Cameroonian doctor, or he become a South African black inventor. You big him up. Well, big up your criminals too. We don't want those sons and daughters of bitches, okay? Let that be known. Keep your trash. Don't bring your trash to us.
else, they show up with their inflated numbers and receive all of the necessary funds and legislation that they need to ensure that these tragedies won't happen again. And with all that being said, that does it for
you. See what I'm saying?
So please make
when they deal with other people, it's always about the money. It's always about the law and the legislation. It's always about, you know, a crime bill. But when it comes to black people, when we ask for a crime bill, we ask for reparations, they says, well, we got to have a discussion about the discussion for the discussion that we're going to discuss about, so we can discuss the discussion so that we can begin to discuss about reparations. See, you're discussing so much that you ain't ever doing nothing. It's just a bunch of blowing up our asses. And a lot of you black coons out here who are continuing to help these people in their fuckery. And you racist white folks who ain't nothing but some trash to be out here allowing this, but yet you want to call yourself liberal. You just a liberal racist. We know most of you liberals are pure racists. Hey, remember what Malcolm said about them? They're more dangerous than the out racists. So I ain't going to stay on this subject long at all. As a matter of fact, I'm done with the matter. I think them brothers did enough talking and made you all know what was popping off. So some of you Negroes will get your heads out your ass. You see? And learn to big up yourselves, to stand for yourselves. Professor Black Truth is trying to get us into intelligence gathering. Professor Black Truth is trying to urge us on to become a black CIA. Like how them boys up there in Minnesota stopped that Fortran bullshit that happened. and air them fuckers out. We need to start getting more involved. Like James Brown said, get into it. Get involved. On that note, Rastafari, Selassie, one of Jah's most humble servants, Emperor Selassie, brought forth this earth to bring messages to be the Mahdi of this earth. We want to give thanks to the Father God, the head creator, and blessings to my people, and be safe and always keep your tools with you.